over there.
Parshas Pinchas, Reish Nun Beis, letter Aleph, the first one on Parshas Pinchas. Tonight's Zera Shimshon Shiur is sponsored Le'ilei Nishmas Reb Ruvain ben Reb Shmuel Yamtiv. That's Laser Scheiner's father, Zechrono Livracha. Today's his yahrzeit. Let's make a bracha Le'ilei Nishmasei Baruch Ato Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Shehakol Niyeh B'dvaroi. Amen. We have tremendous hakaras atov to the Scheiner Mishpacha for giving us the opportunity to have the shurim here. The amount of Torah, Tefillah, all the good things that happen. Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah. It's a place, there's no place in the whole world like this. A place where anybody can come here and feel at home. Everybody comes and feels like they belong. And can I know her what the Scheiner Mishpacha has put together to making this place, doesn't matter where you are in Klal Yisrael, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, Hasidish, Litvish, however person identifies himself, he can come here, daven, learn, get food, Torah, Avodah, and Gemilas Chasadim. It's a center for all three. You could say that if the world stands on Torah, Avodah, Gemilas Chasadim, then this is one of the places in the world that the world stands on. It stands on this place because that's what this place offers, Baruch Hashem. So it's a schus that we can have the Zera Shimshon here in such a heilige Platz. Okay, Marav Rabbi say, Medrash Rabbi, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen, Heishev Chamosim al Bnei Yisrael. Let's read the pasuk for a minute. Heishev Chamosi, thanks to Pinchas, my anger has subsided. Mal Bnei Yisrael. Bekana is kinosi b'soichem. He was mekana. He took my zealousness, my anger. V'loichilisi es Bnei Yisrael b'kinosi. I did not wipe them out. What was happening, as we see from the end of last week's Parsha, Vayu HaMesim HaMagefa Arba Ve'esrim Elef, 24,000 Jews died. Out of 600,000, if you make a cheshbon, 24,000 is between 4 and 5%. 5%, 4 to 5% of a country to get wiped out is a very large portion. And according to Chazal, the Chaim HaKadosh says there was even more. That was just for the Baal Pa'ar. There were even more. The Ramban also says that more would have died. And Pinchas literally single-handedly saved the day and saved Klal Yisrael. One person who stood up, and as we'll soon see, knowing that he would be killed. Pinchas didn't think he was going to get out of this alive. We'll soon see. Having said that, he did, HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved him. Many miracles happened to save Pinchas. And then, V'lechein emar hinini noisen loy es brisi shalom. I will give him a bris of shalom. V'hoisoloi v'lezare achra bris kuhunas oilam tachas ashekine lelekabe chapra b'nei Yisrael. He will be a kohen forever. Let's just explain. I want to give, before we even start the Zera Shimshon, just 2 minutes of background to understand what HaKadosh Baruch Hu did for Pinchas. When Klal Yisrael came out of Mitzrayim, you had 12 Shvatim and Shevet Levi. 11 of the 12 Shvatim had been in Mitzrayim, where Vayimoris Chayeyim Ba'avodah Kosher B'choyim B'venim, they lived Gehenim, they lived hell in this world in Mitzrayim. Shevet Levi was spared. Shevet Levi never served Avodah Zarah, never identified with the Egyptians, even though Bnei Yisrael, they didn't change the way they dressed, and they didn't change their language, but inside, Klal Yisrael were Oved Avodah Zarah. Klal Yisrael was a Memtesh Sharei Tumah. Shevet Levi was not on that level, but they were part of Klal Yisrael. Having said that, Shevet Levi did not multiply and did not have as many kids as the rest of Klal Yisrael did. Comparatively to everyone else, they were separate. What was the reason for that? They were Kadosh. Shevet Levi was always Kadosh. Because if you look in the Chumash, Mitzrayim, because Kasher Ya'anu, the more that they were punished, the more that they tried to destroy them, the more Cain Yifritz. Therefore, they had more of them. But because they were not part of that, they were not part of the Shibud, they didn't have more kids.
So you never find Levim in the Shul?
That's why it's hard to find a Levi. Go find the Levi. Any Levium here? 1, 2, there you go. Now, there was no such thing as a Kohen. There were no Kehanim. That part of Klal Yisrael didn't exist. The Berger was Kodesh Merechem. The Berger had Kedusha. By the way, why is the Berger Kodesh? Why does the Berger get Pishnayim? Why does the Berger get 2 portions? The Berger gets 2 portions, says the Maharal. Well, he's a kid, he gets 1 portion. So, every kid gets a portion. But before the Berger was born, the husband was only as a Baal, was a husband, but he wasn't a daddy. The Berger creates the status that now dad becomes a dad. He goes from being a husband to being a father. So there's a shinui. No longer is he just, are they husband and wife? Thanks to him, they become, B'chayra not. It's true. Thanks, I get the kasha. But because she's not getting Yerusha. But that status of changing the father into being a husband, from an ish to an abba, that the Berger did. When Klal Yisrael is known as B'ni B'chayri Yisrael, why are we called all Klal Yisrael are Berger? You know why? Because we're the first ones who said, Dad in heaven, you're our Tata. We're the ones who recognize that there was a creator. We're the ones who recognize that the Rebbeinu Shalom runs the world. So all of Klal Yisrael, by accepting the Torah and living their life the way the Rebbeinu Shalom wants, we're called, all of us are B'ni B'chayri. Even if you're not a Berger, but you're Hashem's firstborn. Why? Because the status of the Rebbeinu Shalom significantly changes, Kaviyachol, when there are people in this world that say, we're following you. Anybody else who follows afterwards is following in our footsteps. Alle andere Kinder, all the other children that are born, he became a daddy with the first one. So the Berger gets Pishnayim. He gets for being a kid, plus he gets for the status change that he created in the father. As I state in the Maharal, Klal Yisrael's known as Berger because we created that status Kaviyachol by the Rebbeinu Shalom. And of course, every Berger that is born has that Kedusha. Once upon a time, the Bergers were the ones who served would have been the Bergers who served anything that was needed. They had that status, the Berger. So in the desert, before Matan Torah, when there was a carbon that was brought, it was the Bergers who brought the carbon. Until Chet HaEgel, what we fasted for 2 days ago on Shavasar B'Tammuz. The Chet HaEgel, the Bergers also did that service. And when they did that service, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I can no longer have you serve me. I cannot have you be. After serving Avodah Zarah, so not the Bergers, they lost their ability to serve. The Berger were the ones who represented God. Every family, if you had a Berger, you had a representative in the Beis HaMikdash. You would have had. Because if you had a Berger, that's the way it was in the original. However, because of what they did by the Chet Egel, they lost the status. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, now we're going to take a section of Klal Yisrael and we're going to create them as being the ones who serve in the Beis HaMikdash. We're going to call them Kohanim, and he took Aharon, who was a Levi, took Aharon and his 4 children, Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, Yisamar, and said, the 5 of you are now Kohanim. Now, whatever children you had until now are still Leviim. Anybody that's born going forward will be a Kohen. So think of it this way. Imagine a person who lives in Europe. You have children that are born in Europe, so they're Europeans. You move to a different country, move to America, your kids born here, they're Americans. Why? Because they're born here. The ones born there have a status of, they were born in Yena country. So you have a brother that could be, he could be a European, and you have a younger brother who's an American, and vice versa. No problem. So too, lahavdol, Aaron's grandchildren that were around before the change was made were born as Leviim and stayed Leviim. Do you know who was in that category? Pinchas. Pinchas, whoever his cousins were, yes, because they were Levites. Whoever was born as a Levi, Elazar already had kids. We know he had Pinchas. He might have had others. The Torah doesn't tell us, at least Mefurish, which ones he had. But all of them were Leviim. Their younger brothers, now that there was a change of status and they became Kohanim, that younger status changed, and now the younger brothers became Kohanim. So you had in one mishpucha, the older kindlach were the Leviim, the younger kindlach were Kohanim. That's the way it was. Pinchas is unique. Pinchas got the kahuna based on this week's parsha, what he did. Bekanoi eskinosi, HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, I'm going to give you a kahuna, not because you were Yairish kahuna, because you're Aaron's son or grandson, but you're going to be Yairish kahuna based on your own actions. Says the Torah Akdosha, Lechein Emer Hinini Noisi Lois Brisi Shalom V'Oiso Loi V'Lazare Achra Bris Kuhunas Oilam. Now going forward, and most Kohanim Gedolim came from Pinchas. You might not be Moshe B'sta Kohen, yeah? You might not be a Kohen from Yisamar, from Elazar, the other ones, but from Pinchas Dika Kohanim. Pinchas Dika Kohanim are self-made Kohanim. So that's the background for what Pinchas was able to get. That's Parshas Pshat, Rabbi say. That's Parshas Pshat historically what happened to Pinchas.
Women came from Pinchas were Kohanim as well.
Of course. Now,
if Elazar had any daughters, they all become that Bas Kohanim?
If Elazar's daughters at that time, l'chayri, they were Leviim, the first ones. The second ones, it depends on the status, like the example I just gave. If they're born in Europe, they're Europeans. When they're born in America, so they're born in America, lahavdol. So too, when Aaron, Elazar, Yisamar were all Leviim, their children were Leviim. When their status changed to become Kohanim, all their kids, some girls were a Bas Levi and some girls were a Bas Kohen.
Did their status change exactly?
Their status changed by the Mishkan. That was a while ago. Pinchas, all this time, was a Levi. Pinchas was a Levi for 40 years. For 38 years. Pinchas was a Levi for 38 years because he was born a Levi. And now he turned into a... What are you saying? Yeah, he turned 38 years after being a Levi for all this time. Now he became a Kohen. Nuch der Maisa. After this story. Fascinating. But that's Parshas Pshat. That's exactly what happened. Pinchas became a Kohen. Let's learn up the sugya. Why take kahuna? What happened here?
Pinchas' sons would have been a Kohen then.
How?
Pinchas' sons.
No, not if he's a Levi. No, only now he became. Because Pinchas, that's right, Pinchas is a Levi, his brothers, the younger brothers Whoever is born afterwards are Kehanim. Those, you have one mishpacha, mitzatantzach. We split up. This Zan, these are Leviim, and these are Kehanim. Exact. Just like you have in like the example I gave you. People born in one country have one nationality, the other born in another country have a different nationality. And they go accordingly. So too, that's the way it was, and that's the way it was. Pinchas was oiker himself from the status of being a Levi 38 years later, and the Rabbi Shem gave a new status of kahuna based on his actions. Zog the Zera Shimshon. This din bidin hu sheyitul schare. Amar Kadosh Baruch Hu, I'm giving it to him justifiably. Hado dersiv lechein amar hinini noisin loy brisi sholem means hinini noisin. I'm giving to him because he earned it. It's not a chesed. It's not because I have to replace the bechars with somebody else. This type of kahuna, I want you to understand the edelkeit, the tiefkeit of this word. This kahuna is a different type of kahuna. It's not making up a loss because the bechors can't do it, so we have to find someone else to do it. We have plenty. Aaron, Elazar, Yisamar, we have. The Zera Kodesh writes that when Nadav and Avihu passed away, they didn't have any children. There was potential kahuna that was not realized. He says, the Zera Kodesh, Pinchas took up the slot, got the two koiches of Nadav and Avihu. That's why it says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aharon HaKoyin. What's the two bens here? The two Bunim of Aharon that did not make it, that died on the first day of their Avodah. Pinchas got their slots. Ben Elazar, Ben Aharon. He's Ben Elazar or Ben Aharon. Because now that he has Nadav and Avihu's slot, so he also is Ben Aharon. As I taken Zoyer Mefurish in this week's Parsha.
But not because.
But they picked that slot. Now, Medrash Tzarech Bir. What does it mean that he gets it? What does this mean he gets it bedin? V'oid amru, and it says, Ve'via Rashi b'chumash, lefi shahaya shvatim evazim oisay. They were embarrassing him. Pinchas didn't have popularity when he did what he did. They were saying, Abzeh shepitem avi aviv agolam avodah zara. Yeharig nosi shevet mi Yisrael. Who is he? Mizeh. Who is he? You know who his Zayda was? His Zayda was Yisroi. Yisroi who served avodah zara. This fellow has the right to hold up to go kill a Nasi. Lefichach, so because at the time of Pinchas's act, he was getting slack and being questioned about the legitimacy, therefore, bo hakosa v'yichzoi Pinchas, no, Ben Elazar, Ben Aharon HaKoyin. Don't look at him negatively. He has all the right in the world to do what he did. That's what the Medrash says, and that's what Rashi quotes. I want to understand, says the Zera Shimshon, what was this taina because he's Yisroi's grandson? Therefore, he can't do this? What's the taina? Because he's Ben Yisro, he can't heal him. What's the problem? What's wrong? So he's Ben Yisro, but he's doing a mitzvah. A person has to have yichus to do a mitzvah. Since when do you have to have yichus to do a mitzvah? You want to do a mitzvah, so do a mitzvah. What's holding him back?
If Moshe Rabbeinu did the same thing, they would have said the same thing also.
What, maybe, but point is that Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't the grandson of Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu was an item. It was different, but he was blue-blooded. Here they were telling Yisrael was not blue-blooded. That says the Zera Shimshon like this. The Olam thought that Pinchas was being a dayan, that he was acting like a judge. Moshe Rabbeinu, at that time, when the whole story happened, set up judges, set up a court system to immediately to adjudicate all the things that were going on. But Hamid Moshe Dayanim Harbe Gedei Lodon Oisam Ha'oivdim Lepoyer. To damn the people who are oived to Baal Par. Kid Isa Medrash Kach Kol Rosh Ha'oika Oisam. Va'yoyim Moshe Shaivtei Yisrael. So then, Kishiro Pinchas, when they saw Pinchas killing Zimri, they thought they thought that he had been a judge in his own court, and had judged Zimri for the death sentence, and therefore went out to kill him. But they said, how could he be a judge? Ve'ena kol kshem lodin din in nefasha. It's my time. Shekeshem shebez menukim betzedek kak menukim mekol mum. To be a shofet, you have to have yichus. So they misunderstood the role of Pinchas. They thought that he was a judge, and v'ksivis yatsu sham imcha miyuchasam kemoicha. V'lechein amar shvatim ze'eina miyuchas v'loi hayadin. How is he judging din in nefashos? Who gives him the right to do what he did? V'af ima emes hayish Zimri chayiv misa. Even if Zimri does deserve to be killed, Pinchas shouldn't do it. That's what they thought. But here comes the Zera Shimshon to set the record straight. Pinchas didn't do that. Pinchas didn't judge them the way a judge does because he didn't have the right to do it. Pinchas, on the other hand, acted based on what he knew was the right thing to do, which was his guts. And what a yid has to do, called kanoyim poigim boy. That when there's something that's amiss amongst the Jewish people, it's not a time to ask a judge, but you have to take action. He did what his Zaidi Yosef HaTzadik, who he was also a great-great-grandson of Yosef HaTzadik. He did what Yosef would have done. Says the Zera Shimshon, Avotaru v'svirosam, Shema she'osu Pinchas ein hadavar toli b'dayonim, ela adarabah, amrinon haboyel aramis kanoyim poigim boy. Yosef HaTzadik had lived in Egypt before any Jews came to Egypt. Sholach lefonov ish le'eved nimker Yosef. Pasuk in Tehillim. We've talked about it. Chazal say Yosef HaTzadik was sent to Mitzrayim. He was sent there. One individual boy, 17 years old, stayed there for a dozen years, 12 years, in the most crepid and immoral society. And Yosef HaTzadik goder atzmai mina erva. All the possibilities of Egyptian women, of intermarriage, of being boyel aramis. Yosef HaTzadik was successful in being true to his roots, in being true to the Avos HaKadoshim. Eile Toldos Yaakov. How was it possible that Toldos Yaakov should come to Mitzrayim and for 200 years not assimilate with the Goyim? Eile Toldos Yaakov Yosef. Yosef single-handedly, Godar Atzmai Min Ha'erva. He made sure in himself that he wouldn't be influenced whatsoever from the Egyptian way of life. And that created like a cocoon, a kedusha, that Klal Yisrael was able to tap into that energy. The Higdur Kol Yisrael al Yodai. Throughout the 210 years of Egypt, there was only one story of a Jewish girl living with a Goyish man, Shlomit Bas Divri. They had that son who was the Ish of a Mishu cursed Hashem. That was the only story. Look at today's society, Nebuch, of how many Yidden are nichshol with Aramis. Chazal say that living with an Aramis is breaching the line. And even Freie Yidden, even Jews who are not so observant, but always tell their kids, you hear it again and again, Marry Jewish, marry Jewish, marry, keep it going. Don't stop. Marry Jewish. That is part and parcel. Das is a Yosef Atzadik eingepflanzt. This is what he put into Klal Yisrael. His grandson Pinchas saw Zimri living with this Goite. He saw her living. He couldn't. His Yosef in him. The Yosef in him was poige in was what took a ball, right? He didn't ask any questions. Medas atzmai osa umasha otsa v'loy nimlach b'sanhedrin klal ela v'loy oid. Do you know where Zimri was when he lived with Cosby? He was in the middle of Machne Shimon. He was in the middle of the tribe of Shimon. Imagine going in Lahavdil into an Arab neighborhood single-handedly and killing the head of the neighborhood, killing the head of the city. What would the inhabitants of the city do to that person if they caught him? They'd rip him apart. When Pinchas went into Shevet Shimon to go kill Cosby, to go kill Zimri, he knew he wasn't coming out. Says Elishekavash Yitzroi upitpeit imoy lachnes atzmoy lesakonas gedoyles kiriiso hasam b'medrash. He said, they're doing the wrong thing. I'm willing to give up my life to stand for what is correct. The Gemara in the Medrash brings down that there were 6 miracles that happened at that time. They came to come, and according to one pshat in the Zohar, actually, what I mentioned earlier, that he had the 2 neshamas, according to one pshat, they grabbed a hold of him, Parcha nishmasai v'chazar, and the neshama came back, the neshamas of Nadav Avihu, and that's how he became Eliyahu Hanavi. He was already nifter, and he had already had Tchias HaMesim. According to the look in the Zohar HaKadosh. So he already got back Pi Shnayim. He took back both of those neshamas. That's a Berazoi state that, so therefore Pinchas was Zoich, he didn't have to die anymore. Because he had already been Meiser Nefesh completely, and he came back, so the Levi part of him was gone. And the neshamas that came back, and that's why he had bris kunas oilam. What?
But they actually kill him.
According to one pshat, parcha nishmasai, like parcha nishmasai v'chazar. That's what the Zohar HaKadosh says. Uma'ato kishem sheyosef pitpit beyitzray ola legedula Yosef atzadik. So what we're saying now is that Pinchas acted like his Zaidi, just like Yosef atzadik, day in and day out, fought against his Yetzer Hara and made sure that the Yetzer Hara should have no shlita over him and no shlita over Klal Yisrael, should not be able to control them. Pinchas acted the same way. What does it say about Yosef, says the Zera Shimshon? It says about Yosef, Peh shaloi noshak la'aveira picha yisha kol ami. The Medrash says, the mouth that didn't kiss the girl is the mouth that will tell everyone what to do in this country. The peh that you are mekadesh, the peh that was so careful to not use his lips the wrong way, will be the peh you control. You know how a person becomes a leader? You know how a person becomes a leader? When he leads himself. He's in control of himself, in control of his Yetzer Hara, and control of his own taivas, and controls of his own. He doesn't get angry. He's in control. He's self-control. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives a person to have siyata d'shmaya, to be in control of others, because it's the same midah. And therefore he ran all of Egypt. He was the melech over himself. Moyach leiv kaved. Moyach leiv kaved. He's in control of himself. Memeli can be melech over others. Peh, you knew how to use your mouth in private. You know how to you get the schus to use your mouth. Apicha yishik kol ami. Everybody's going to eat from you. Av zeh, 1 second. Av zeh yesh lo la'alis legedula. So too, Pinchas. You know, there are 24 matnas kahuna. There are 24 different presents that the Kohanim get. Truma, Bikurim, they get the chamisha sloyim, they get different, right? They get the karbanos. When you shecht an animal, a chulin animal, there are three matanas: zroya, lechayayim, and keva. Zroya is the hand, lechayayim is the cheeks, keva is the stomach. Says the Zera Shimshon, quoting Gemara in Chulin, those three matanas we, the Kohanim, get because of Pinchas. How so? Zocha l'shloisha matanas, zroya v'chaim v'keva kaminim b'chulin. Zroya keneged hayad. He picked up his hand. In other words, he had the guts to go in and kill Zimri and Cosby. Zroya. L'chayayim, his mouth. Vayifalel Pinchas, and Pinchas davened to the Rabbi Shalom. And Keva, he stuck it into the place over there, the act of into their stomach where he stuck it in. Those three parts of what Pinchas did, Pinchas's matanis that he brought to Klal Yisrael. Says the Maharal, you think this is Stameh? Zroya l'chayayim v'keva. A person, mafien, a person, efwata, mayor, echomrim mafien. How do you say that in English? What describes, character. The character, that's right. The character of a person is gimul chelkei ha'odam. There are three parts to a person, okay? The guf, his strength, and his koyach of speech. He's a medaber. Zroya, his koyach biyad. L'chayayim, his koyach of dibur. And keva, that's when the food first goes into it, the person's body. The first place it goes into the stomach gets broken down. The first receptacle of the food. Pinchas hat aveggestellt, says the Maharal, the tzuras ha'odam properly. He by establishing what the guf is supposed to look like, and this way, every time you shechted an animal, chulin dike animals, you became a shutif with the kohen. Just like when you took off the truma, you had to give that to the kohen. Every barbecue, every shchita, you had to have a kohen give him. So you like that, huh? Zroya lechayayim v'keva. You always had, there was a shtikla for the kohen as well. The kohen was a shutif, and that's Pinchas. Why? The Maharal is teaching us because the tzuras ha'odam, was mein sein a mensch, to use your kaiches for the Rabbeinu Shalom, not to let your kaiches go a veer and go out and go chas v'shalom and be moitzi and connect to those who you shouldn't connect to. Pinchas was responsible for keeping Klal Yisrael connected. Weiter. V'zok the Zera Shimshon v'lefi shemistam agdulei choy. No, 1 second. V'lefi shoyver domim shel rishayim ki'ilu hikriv karbam. I'm skipping down. Mishum zocha li'es koyin royal hakriv karbanas acherim. Because when a person does the right thing, when a person avenges what the Rabbi Shalom wants him to avenge, he's considered bringing kapara to the nation. Therefore, Pinchas becomes a person who can bring kapara to the nation, and therefore he becomes a koyin. V'kedei laharos liYisrael shenotu schare bedin af al pi shefi svarosam lo haya royal lias koyin meyuchas. And pay attention to this edelkeit. What happened here with Pinchas? Pinchas, they say, who are you? Yisro's grandson. Oived Avodah Zarah. You have no right to do this. Pinchas shows them what I have inside of me is the Kedusha of Yosef HaTzadik. I acted like Yosef. The Rebbeinu makes a miracle, and Pinchas stays alive, and Berger says to him, you will become the Kohen. You know what he shows everybody? When you think that you're not worthy, and that you've done an Aveira, and the Rabbeinu Shalom won't accept you, and everybody in the world is saying to you, you're Tameh, and you don't deserve to come close to Hashem, Pinchas is the prototype to show you that's what happened to me, and they were all wrong. That's what happened to me. They said that I don't deserve to do this. They said I have no right to go and pick up a hand against Cosby, against Zimri. They said I have no right to do this. Punkt verkehrt. Look at paragraph number 1, Vikidam, page Reish Nun Gimel. Vikidei lahares li Yisrael shenotlu schar bidin. Based on what they said, he had no right to be a kohen. He's also going to tell Klal Yisrael, no matter how tamei we are, we're still Hashem's children. No matter how much the world says we're not deserving, Yavai Eliyahu Pinchas, and tell us Mashiach is coming. Ymeila levaser liyisrael al kol mishpachos hamiyuchasei shenisrachku lekorvan. La'asad love, according to one pshat, the Gemara says that all those people who had questionable yichas, are miyuchas, not miyuchas, Eliyahu is going to say, you're good. You're good. There's no problem. You're good. The Kedas Rabbi Yehuda, Amrina Mishpacha Shenitmu Nitma. It's gone. The meaning, we forget about their problem. V'lechein Amar Bidin Sheyitol Schorei Koloimer Shadin Shenase Ima Yenase Name L'Chol Yisrael. What happened to Pinchas was that he became Torah, happened to all of Klal Yisrael. That's the first pshat. I don't have time to say the second pshat, but I just want to give a shout out to the second pshat. Hinine noisin lo is brisi shalom. He says Pinchas also, by doing this, brought shalom to Klal Yisrael. And says the Zera Shimshon, we're going to have to do this more, but I'm just going to give you the highlights. Lamadnu, second paragraph. Kol oitzam v'gedulas hashalom. When a person makes peace, ein hasoton noigeya b'mokom sheyesh shalom. The Satan cannot touch a family or a person or Klal Yisrael when there is peace amongst the Jewish people. Pinchas ve'ein rishus lechol mazik likonas b'mokom sheyesh shalom. There is no place that for any mazikim, there's no place for any negativity, there's no place for any satan when Klal Yisrael is b'shalom. Hineni noisen loy es brisi shalom. I was ready to wipe out Klal Yisrael. I was so upset at them. And Pinchas was kanes kenosi. He came and said, it's fine, I'll take care of it. And he made peace with me and Klal Yisrael. So therefore, forever, Pinchas Ze Eliyahu will be there to be mevaser to Klal Yisrael that I am going to come back and I'm going to be veheshiv leiv Bunim alavoisav. He's the person who's going to do that. And a yid has to know that when a person is cholil in a machlokes and you're the bigger person and you make peace with somebody else, and it's hard, the harder it is, the more shalom you bring into the world and the closer you bring Mashiach. The harder it is. Chazal say, who is the person achroi for sinna in the world? Who is the big Scheiner? Who's the big Scheiner? What's his name? What? Esav Scheiner es Yaakov. Esav, right? Esav, they're the ones that, if there's sinna in the world, it's Esav. Esav is on one end of the spectrum. Shalom is on the other end. Esav is 376 and Shalom is 376. They have the same gematria. We have to take the Esav inside of us and go over to the side of Shalom. Whenever a Yid is not at peace with another Yid, it's the Esav in the world that has penetrated us. It's the Esav, it's the Shalom, it's the lack of Shalom. And who doesn't have somebody that you're not verkriegt with? Unfortunately, we all do. But it's our job to be roidif Shalom. That was, everything is Shalom. Berger Kahanim ends with Shalom. Shemoneh Esrei ends with Shalom. Avarchas Am Yisrael Bas Shalom. Pinchas was Oisa Shalom b'mroimav uyasa Shalom aleinu. Pinchas was the one who brought hinini noisin loyis brisi Shalom. At kama that Yidden are zoicha to bring Shalom in their personal life. Wherever you have a situation that you can rectify, and it's hard for you, but you go above and beyond, you're mamish bringing Mashiach one step closer. He says that too. I'm happy you came in. And Pinchas was hininoi loy brise, the fact that he made this connection between him and the Rabbeinu Shalom, Klal Yisrael and the Rabbeinu Shalom of Shalom. So he is going to be the Mevaser Shalom la'amo Yisrael b'mehei Rabbi Amen.
Amen.